TV viewers, Facebook Live, social media, YouTube, all those link ups. We want to tell you guys, welcome home. It's good to have you guys with us. We are Christ Point Church, and we want to say to you, welcome home. Hey, guys, let's just welcome Smithville on board this morning. Come on, guys, let's give them some love. Let's give them some love, Smithville. Man, they're down there, they're rocking it, and you know what, we're so excited for them. You know, Smithville, you are our family. We love you guys, and you are a part of what Christ Point is doing. You're a part of what God is doing through Christ Point, and we want to say to you, welcome home. So we are Christ Point Church, one church, two locations, several media outlets. Amen, amen. Hey, let's just jump right in. Let's jump right in, and want to take just a minute to introduce you to Facing the Line Week 3. Now, I'm going to tell you, we've looked at some line encounters. The past 2 weeks, we've looked at line encounters, and Sam and that crew down at Smithville, they're looking at line encounters this morning also. We're looking at the line encounters, Facing the Line Week 3, and if I had a title separately, I just love to title things, you know. I just call this one the Dusty Trail. See, we've rode along with David. In week 1, we rode along with David to recognize what the roar of the lion sounds like. We've rode along with David. Then last week, we even learned from Benaiah that it's okay and it's even in order to chase a lion. So chasing our opportunities, recognizing the roars. Now let's take a close look this morning at what I consider the most dangerous lion that we will face. This is the most dangerous line that we will face. And before we dive in, let's look at Scripture. Judges chapter 13. We're going to look at Judges chapter 13. We're going to look at the most dangerous line that we're going to have any encounter with. Now, we're going to start in verse 2. We're going to look at all the way through 5. There was a certain man of Zorah, of the tribe of the Danites, that's the tribe of Israel, whose name was Manoah. And his wife was barren and had no children. Now, I kind of get a little bothered here. They don't even bother to give this woman a name. I mean, this is a whole other sermon series. But that poor woman, that poor woman don't even get a name. She's just Manoah's wife. But if you'll notice, and you read in chapter 13, the angel has no concern with the husband. It's all about the wife. Then the angel of the Lord appeared to the woman and said to her, behold, you're a barren woman. You have not any children, but you shall conceive and you will bear a son. Now let me just back up there. I just got it. Here's another sermon altogether. When somebody tells you that there's no way that you're going to be healed, there's all kinds of people told this woman she wasn't going to ever have children. And when God says it's going to be, you might as well get it all in order because it's getting ready to be. So she getting ready to have some children up in here. So therefore, be careful. Now, you're going to conceive and bear a son. This is very important. Be very careful. And drink no wine or strong drink or eat anything unclean. For behold, you shall conceive and you shall bear a son. No razor shall come upon his head, for the child shall be a Nazirite to God. That's important, to God, from the womb. And he shall begin to save Israel from the hand of the Philistines. Let's just jump ahead to chapter 14. Let's look at chapter 14, verses 1 through 6. Now we've got the introduction to Samson. Now let's look at Samson. Samson went down to Timnah, and at Timnah he saw one of the daughters of the Philistines. Then he came up and he told his mother and his father, I saw one of the daughters of the Philistines at Timnah. Now go get her for me as my wife. It just looks to me like Samson all grown up. Samson's no longer a little kid. Samson's no longer a thought. He's no longer a promise. Samson's a big old guy. He wants him a wife. So that's how I kind of see this. Now, his father and his mother said to him, ain't there somebody around here? Is there not somebody around here among the daughters of your relatives or among all of our people that you must go to take a wife from the uncircumcised Philistines, the enemy camp? You're going into the enemy camp to get yourself a wife. But Samson said to his father, get her for me, Daddy. Get her for me. She's right in my eyes. Get her for me. His father and his mother did not know that it was from the Lord. I love this verse. For he was seeking an opportunity against the Philistines. At that time, the Philistines ruled over Israel. got a whole lot going on here. Then Samson went down with his father and his mother to Timnah, and they came to the vineyards of Timnah, and behold, a young lion came toward him roaring. Then the Spirit of the Lord rushed upon him, and although he had nothing in his hand, he tore that lion to pieces as one tears a young goat, but he did not tell his father or his mother what he had done. Now, let's just introduce the lion. Let's introduce Samson. Let's introduce the situation. Samson is under a Nazirite vow. Now, I want you to remember what it said. He is a Nazirite to God. That means he is separated to the Lord. He is under a special vow. Now, in Numbers chapter 6, that's early in the Bible. Numbers chapter 6, God lays out what a Nazirite vow looks like. And they know, the nation of Israel knows what, and we've seen in the Bible, there has been more than one Nazirite that has been powerful in the Lord. Samson is one of those, and that Nazirite vow could be taken by a man or a woman, and this was the special ordinances, so to speak, in order to be under that vow. No wine, no strong drink. During that vow, whether it be for a lifetime or for a period of time, they were under this vow. So, no wine, no strong drink, no grapes, no juice from the grapes, no grapes fresh or dried. They are to eat nothing produced by the grapevine, not even skins, not even seeds. And no razor shall touch this person's head. Don't cut your hair, whatever you do. And his hair or her hair shall grow long in locks, and they are to look different, they are to act different, and they are to be different. And then this one is very important. Don't go near anything dead. You are not to be near anything dead. As a matter of fact, in that Nazirite vow that is laid out in Numbers chapter 6, talks about if somebody falls dead beside you, what you have to do in order to present yourself clean again, even though you had no control over somebody just having a heart attack and dying. So, Samson is called by God before he's even conceived. Samson's called by God before conception to be a judge of Israel under a Nazirite vow. Now in chapter 14, he's all grown up. Samson's all grown up. Now, let me just kind of lay this one out there for you. Sometimes a lion or two may roar. A lion or two may rear its ugly head. In our lives, a lion or two is going to rear its head. It's not going to look pretty. Sometimes it is going to look pretty. Sometimes it's going to be in our face. Sometimes it's not going to be in our face. But in life, there's going to be some lions that rear their heads. But Samson's lion, pay attention, is the worst we'll face. The very worst. Before I get there, let me tell you about this guy. Man, some of you have heard me tell about this guy before. This guy kind of set himself up to be a self-proclaimed healer. He's going to heal people. And so he's got this whole thing set up, this whole image of how powerful he is. And he goes into a church service and he says, I'm going to prove to you, I'm going to have a healing service. But before I do, I need two people. Two people that I need to volunteer for some kind of infirmity. I want you to volunteer to be healed. And he said, I just need two people. And all of a sudden this guy walks up and he's on crutches. He says, sir, I've got to ask you, what do you want to be healed from today? He said, well, I can't walk and I can't even stand without crutches. Crutches are my life, and I can't move in this world without them. He says, okay, well, what's your name? He said, my name is James. He said, James, this is what I want you to do. I want you to come onto the platform. I want you to walk behind the curtain and stand behind the curtain, and I need you to just wait for my instruction. He said, can you do that with some help? And they helped him, and he went, and he said, yes. He said, I want one more person today. And all of a sudden, this guy just runs down. And he says, okay, sir. What is your name? He said, my name is Douglas. He said, sir, let me ask you. He said, what would you like to be healed from? He said, I have a little bit of a speech impediment. So I can't talk plain. He says, well, would you like for me to heal you? Yes. He said, well, this is what I want you to do. Douglas, I want you to walk up to this platform. I want you to get behind the curtain with James. And he did so. He said, okay, James, can you hear me? Yes, sir, I can. He said, Douglas, can you hear me? Oh, yes, yes, I can hear you. Oh, yes. He says, do you want to be healed? And James says, yes, I do. Douglas says, oh, yes, yes. And then this guy just slaps that curtain with everything that he has. And he says, I command you to be healed. And he says, James, throw out your crutches. James throws out his crutches. People are like, oh my, look at this. He says, Douglas, speak. Douglas said, James fell down. Man, see, this dude's trying to do this without the Lord. See, this is what I call the dusty trail. In life, we can do it with the Lord or we can do it without the Lord. With the Lord, it's got merit and reward. Without the Lord, somebody's falling down. Somebody's not getting healed. Our dusty trail that we call life's not our own. It's just not ours. It don't belong to us, and we can't do this without God. We can't do it without the Lord. See, the more of our own desires that we pack into the trail, the dustier the trail becomes. And when the trail becomes so dusty, at some point, we get our view very clouded. So the more the dust rises, the cloudier the view gets. See, Samson was on a dusty trail headed to a place called Timnah. He's going to a place called Timnah to get himself a wife. Man, you got to hand it to this guy. This is kind of like going back into the old westerns. He's going to get himself a wife. And all of a sudden, bang, out of nowhere, there's a lion that attacks him and charges after him. Now, Samson's line, we mentioned, was the most dangerous line that we will face. And I'm going to tell you why. Samson's line represents the flesh. It represents the flesh. What that means is it represents the carnal nature. Samson's line represents the human desire. The human desire to heal people without God. The human desire to do my own thing and I don't need you, Lord. The human desire to say, even though you say no, I want to do it anyway. That human desire. See, now let me just break this down for you. I thought this was very interesting. Timnah is an Israeli Hebrew name, and it means forbidding or forbidden. That's what that word to that town, in that town means. It was a town in Judah. It wasn't a town that was a Philistine. It was a Judean town, and it was heavily occupied by the enemy who was the Philistines. So here we have a land that belongs to Israel, but it's occupied and controlled and governed by the enemy. Now, apparently, it is very alluring because this is a place that Roy Orbison would have wrote a song about. There's some pretty women lives in this place. It is it is a place that will catch our eye. It is a place where the flesh desires to be. The flesh wants to be at a place called Timnah. Now, it is a forbidden place. Now, let's look at this line. Samson's under a very strict vow. Let's not forget that. He's under a very strict vow, and he's already been to Timnah once, we know at least once, because he's found himself a pretty Philistine to marry. Got him a pretty Philistine girl picked out. I want that one, Daddy. That's the one I want. But I don't know if I can get her. I want that one, Daddy. I want that one, Daddy. I want that one, Daddy. So he's found which one he wants, and he's on his way with his parents in tow. He's got his parents in tow with him to fetch himself a wife. He kind of puts me in mind of Ernest T. Bass right there. If you don't know who Ernest T. Bass is, you ain't even American. So I'm just going to tell you, you better start looking that up. He's on his way to get himself a wife, and he's kind of got that Ernest T. Bass mentality, and a lion attacks him. Now, I want you to look at as we kind of meander through this. In verse 4, he's with his parents. Man, I mean, they're just on the dusty trail. He's with his parents. He's excited. Going to get me a woman today. Going to get me a woman today. And he's on his way. And his mom and his dad's like, I don't know about all this, but we're going to do what he wants anyway. So they're on their way. And in verse 5, all of a sudden, he's alone in a vineyard. Now, verse 4, he's with his mama. He's got mom and dad right there beside him. They're zippity-doo-dah like they're down the yellow brick trail, and they're just having a good time. And then all of a sudden in verse 5, there is no mom and dad. All of a sudden he's by himself, Now let's go back to the Nazirite vow. I hope I'm not losing you. I'm kind of trying to bring you right on in. Verse 4, got mom and dad in tow down the dusty trail. Verse 5, no mom and dad. Okay, let's go back to the Nazirite vow. No thing, nothing from the vine, no grapes, no skins, no seeds, no fresh or dried. See, and he ain't with his parents anymore. See, he's in a forbidden place because it is a vineyard. If you'll notice with me, in that scripture, he is in a vineyard when the lion attacks him. And what grows in vineyards? Grapes everywhere. What grows in there? And his Nazirite vow is not to partake or to have anything to do with anything that grows from the vine. No grapes, no nothing. And that's all you can see in a vineyard is grapes. Why is he in a vineyard? Why is he in there? He's in a forbidden place, headed down a dusty trail to a forbidden town, and then the lion attacks him. Man, this lion's real slick. It's real sly. See, the flesh kicks in, and the vow's about to be broken. See, when the flesh kicks in, nobody got time for their vow anymore. Nobody's got time for their vow anymore. See, he's in the vineyard, and all of a sudden now we've got grapes that are very alluring. We've got grapes that really, I'm thirsty, I'm hungry, I've got to have something. See, our flesh is our largest line. So I'm going to give you key points. If you know me, I love key points. If I had a list of key points would be my top key point. So I'm going to give you the key points. Key point number 1, our flesh is our largest line. Our flesh is our largest lion. It is our greatest adversary, and it is our toughest foe. Let me kind of break down what this looks like to Samson. Samson maybe makes a detour. I don't know. Some applications say he might even went to the bathroom. Who knows? But I think it kind of odd that he has to go to the bathroom and a smorgasbord. So he's in the vineyard and the lion attacks him. That's kind of like if you're a recovering alcoholic, you don't need to be in the bar. I'm just going to tell you, that's probably not a good place to be. The bar is your vineyard. If you have a gambling addiction, you don't go to the casino because you like the buffet. So it don't work that way, because the casino makes you walk through it to get to whatever you're going to. Believe me. Ask my mama if you don't know. You throw my mama on the bus there a little bit. If you're an addict, then your vineyard is your dealer. You don't hang out with a dealer. I'm just going to hang out with him because I like him. You know what? Because he's a pretty good old boy. You know what? It's like a friend of mine told, they're all pretty good old boys until they're drunk. They're all pretty good old boys until they're high. You know what? If you're a dieter, if you're dieting, then let me tell you something. I'm going to throw this one out there. Stay away from the dessert bar. Stay away from that section that's on the end. It always looks real good. Stay away from that. That's our vineyard. So our flesh, key point number 1, is always our largest line. Sometimes the flesh just charges and comes out of nowhere. Sometimes it just comes at us, and our only recourse is to kill it. Our only recourse is to kill it, to beat it back. Samson killed his lion, but get this, the lion's influence is far from dead. Samson killed his lion, but the lion's influence is way far from being dead. Key point number 2. His parents aren't with him, and he doesn't tell them what's going on. If you'll notice, it says he don't tell his parents that he has an lion encounter. He don't say anything about that. His parents are not even around him. So key point number 2, if we have to hide what we're doing, it's probably flesh-driven. If we have to hide what we're doing, it's probably got something to do with the flesh. Let me give you an example. I'm just going to tell you, I don't know how this works, but if I was going to have an affair, I would do it secretively. So see, if you're having an affair, you don't want everybody to know it. You want to keep it to yourself. If you are trying to hide pornography sites on your computer, then you know what? It's probably flesh-driven. If you have a spending habit that's uncontrolled and you're running up credit cards and all this other stuff, you know what? You may have a spending problem, and it is a flesh-driven problem. So if we have to hide what we're doing, it's probably flesh-driven. Key point number 3. Before we do, I want to look at verse 8. And it's not on the board, so I'm going to read it to you. See, I'm going to read how this rolls out. And after some days, it kind of goes like this. Samson got the girl. So after some days, he returned to take her, and he turned aside. Now, if you'll notice something, he turned aside. It wasn't that he stayed focused. He turned aside and to see the carcass of the lion. He turned aside to see the carcass of the lion, and behold, there was a swarm of bees in the body, in the carcass of the lion, and then the bees had built a hive, and there was honey. So key point number 3, the flesh ain't as dead as we think it is. The flesh is never as dead as we think it is. That lion's not going away easy. That flesh is not as dead as no matter how much we kill it today, it may just rise up again tomorrow. Notice with me what Samson does. He goes back down that dusty trail, and what he does is turn aside. So if you and I were out today walking around, you know how that would go down? We walked into the vineyard. Because I'm just going to tell you, there was no CSI, there was no crime shows on television back then. People didn't move bodies. The lion's body was still laying where you killed it. Nobody drug it to an inconspicuous place. It was still there. So number 1, he is violating the vow again, or coming close to it, by entering into the vineyard. I'm back in the vineyard, right where the attack began to start with. I'm back in the vineyard. And number 2, he approaches a dead carcass. This is a no-no under a Nazirite vow. Don't go near anything or touch anything or be associated with anything that is dead. A lot of laws and rules according to that. In verse 9, he even scraped out the honey from inside the carcass. And he ate it. Not only did he eat it, he gave some to his mom and daddy, and he didn't tell them where it came from. So here's some old dead carcass honey. And I give some to you, mom and dad. Oh, that's good stuff. You know, they don't know they're eating dead flesh. They said, boy, it's got kind of a tainted smell to it. But you know, he's not only violated that, but he's made some violations. The flesh will just give in so easily. The flesh will give in so quickly. You know, I got to go back to Joseph. You know, you just got to run with everything you got in you. Everything that we have in us, we got to run and get away from it. He gave some to mom and dad, but he didn't tell them where it came from. He didn't tell them, Mom, Dad, I was in the vineyard. What are you doing in the vineyard? You know you're not supposed to go there. Well, I was, you know. I mean, why was you? He didn't tell them he was in the vineyard. He didn't tell them where the honey came from. He didn't say anything because they knew the vow. They knew the vow. So if you're under 20 years old, 25 years old in here, and you're not telling mom and dad something, it's because mom and dad knows a whole lot more about you than you know about you. I'm telling you, you know, I just tell you like it is. I'm just laying it out there. I have said this before, that I got my whipping every night before I got my riddling. And let me tell you what my mama said to somebody the other day. She's sitting right back there. My mama said this, I never gave him a riddling a day in his life. You notice she didn't say she didn't give me a whipping every night. She let on, she real quick, hey, I never gave him riddling, but I got my whipping every night. And I like the way it flows off the tongue when you say right after you got your riddling, right before you got your riddling. So the thing is, you know, Samson gets the girl. Samson gets the girl, and then all of a sudden, he's in the wrong place again. He's in the wrong place again. So they knew the vow. The mom and dad knew the vow. Mom and dad knows the vow. Philistines don't know the vow. Mom and dad knows the vow. Samson gets the girl and he marries her. He throws a big 7-day party. We're getting to key point number 4. He throws a 7-day party. And all of a sudden, that old lion of the flesh rears its head again. Here it is again. Man, I'm telling you, that thing don't go away like we think it does. Samson becomes a little bit arrogant. Key point number 4. In the flesh, arrogance is close behind. In the flesh, there's going to be a spirit of arrogance that won't be too far behind. And it will show itself. And he becomes a bit arrogant. He gives the Philistines a riddle to solve. Now, if you don't know this story, I want you to read it. Chapter 14. It's very good. I want you to read it. If you don't know it, then if you don't want to bother to read it, I'm going to tell you a little bit of it. He gives them a riddle. See, nobody knows this story. Nobody knows the lion attack. Nobody knows anything about it except for Samson. So, Samson gives these guys, now this is the enemy. Here, you are occupying our land. We don't like you. We don't like anything about you. And the enemy is saying here, you're a bunch of field dwellers, a bunch of farmers. You're a bunch of peasants. We don't like you. We don't like anything about you. And then Samson has his chance to get the upper hand. Samson says, I got a riddle for you. And if you can solve it, then I'll give you 30 garments. If you can't solve it, you give me 30 garments. And it kind of goes like that. They make a wager out of an arrogant bet. And then Samson just kind of thinks that he's got the high road here. I've got the upper hand. He could have kept his mouth shut and everything would have been okay. But instead he gets very arrogant. The flesh rises up and he says, out of the eater, something to eat. Out of the strong, something sweet. Now what in the world does that mean? Who could figure that out? So they're just kind of going nuts here, third, fourth day. So what do? They pull Samson's little pretty wife from Timnah's side. Here's how it's going to go down. If you don't find out what the answer to that riddle is, we're going to kill you and we're going to kill your daddy. So, have fun. So she works on him, and she finds the secret to the riddle. She tells it to them, and because of one act of arrogance, this one act of arrogance cost men their lives. It costed him the loss of his wife. It cost his wife and her father. They were burned to death by the Philistines. So they didn't keep their word. Key point number 5. The dusty road doesn't belong to us. The dusty road doesn't belong to us. We're just borrowing it for a time. Hey guys, you were doing this and you stopped on us and you watched us, and I appreciate it. So thank you for tuning in. Thank you for spending some time with us. I pray that you enjoyed the service today. Let me take this opportunity to invite you out personally. We're located on the square in Sparta. Our service times are at 9 and 11 every Sunday morning. We'll meet you at the door with a hug. We'll meet you at the door with some coffee ready and some donuts if you want. And let me just take a real quick minute to invite you over to our Smithville campus. For those of you who can't drive over to Sparta, drive over to Smithville, 11 o'clock for now, at 614 Murphy Street in Smithville, Tennessee. So one of our campuses, Christ Point Church, we're real people, we're living real lives, and we're serving a real God. Welcome home.